All right, class. We are going to talk about domain and range in this video. I know we've talked about it before, and we are going a little deeper. Before we talked about discrete graphs, where we found the domain and range, and a discrete a discrete graph is where you just have points. And when you just have points, you just list the domain and range based off of the x and y values. But when it's continuous, you have lines where you have lines or curves on the graph. We're going to learn how to use interval notation to uh, describe to describe what the domain and range is. So if we're looking at this set of points, we are going to simply list the x values as our domain and the y values as our range. So right here we have a domain of 2, 3, 4, and 6, and a range of -3, -1, 3, and 6. Now when we use interval notation, when we have a continuous graph, we're going to use parentheses or brackets, and it's going to be look similar to an ordered pair, but it is different. Where you use the parentheses when there is a open dot or the number is not included on the graph. And we're going to go through some examples to make sure you understand that. And then you when you use brackets when there is a closed dot or when the number is included on the graph. So, and it's very important that you understand this concept because it does mean it can make your answer be wrong or right based off of you using the wrong way. And the number signs is just put in place to hold the spot of a number going there. So now domain. If we have a graph here, if we understand that domain is our x values, we basically want to look at the x value on the left and the right. On the as far left as we can go and as far right as we can go. So right here we see that we have a point right here that is a closed circle, and because it's a closed circle, that means that we're going to use a bracket. And over here we have on our far right we have a closed circle again. All this stuff in the middle we don't have to overly concern ourselves about because they're in the middle. And the so when we do this, the x values that those 2 points are at is -3 and 2, and we use the brackets again because they had the closed circle. Now, when we look at the range is our y values. So we're going to look at the top and the bottom. Now, this is very important. Just like on domain, we put the number that was on the left first, and then the number that was on the right. It has to be in that order. When you do the range, you have to do the lowest number and then the highest number. When I say the lowest number, the number at the low part of your graph, then the number at the high part of your graph. Now, right here we have um, your point right here, and we only need to worry about the y value of that point because if you look, it's not exactly 1 as far as the x value goes, but we can tell that it's -5. And then if we go to the top, you don't want to stop here, which a lot of people make the mistake in. They stop on the x when they cross the x-axis. But we don't stop here because it's not the highest point. We go all the way here to where it's 2. So our range would be -5 to 2 because it is the lowest and the highest points on the graph. All right, let's try another example. Um, if we're doing the domain, left, right, x value is -3, closed circle, so it's a bracket. High value is +3, open circle, so it's a parentheses. So we have -3 to 3. Then for our range, we have a low point, which is going to be -1, and it is an open circle. So we're going to use a parentheses. And then our high point, we have a number of them, but they're all of them, the y value is 2. And it is a point, or there is no open circle anywhere on there, so we use a bracket. So from -1 to 2. All right. Now, at the bottom, read it's a special case when there's an open circle and closed circle on the same number. Always go with the closed circle. So keeping that in mind, pause the video and you try to do the domain and range on your own this time. Okay, the domain, again, I have from -3 to +3, bracket, parentheses. Okay, and then for my range, my low point is -4. My high point, I have 2 points at -2. Have one that's a one that's a closed circle, and then one that's an open circle. And as our note said, if there's a open and a closed one, always go with the closed circle. So we have from -4 to -2, with both of them have brackets. All right, you try this one. Again, pause the video, try it, and then I'll show you the answer. A domain of -4 to 2 with brackets, and a range of -1 to 4 with brackets. All right, now this is a very important that we understand that anytime that there are no dots and it looks like the graph goes to the end of the grid, we're going to assume that there's an arrow and it continues on forever in that direction. Now, we haven't talked about when there's arrows yet, but if it's an arrow, that means that we can never reach it, so we can't represent that with a number. And I'm pretty sure many of you can think of a sign or a symbol that we use to represent when it keeps going on and on forever. If you said infinity, you are correct. So right here on my left side, my far left, I don't have a point. It's going to keep going forever, so I'm going to say infinity. But because it's going to my negative numbers, it's going to be negative infinity. And it's very important you put negative infinity, and you have to put it first. And then it's going to keep going to positive infinity. Now here's the question. Do we use parentheses or brackets? We cannot actually get to that point or ever actually be equal to it. So therefore, we have to use parentheses on both sides. So from negative infinity to infinity is our domain. Now our range is almost the same, but we have to pay very close attention because at the bottom we have arrows that are two arrows that are pointing down. So at our bottom, we're definitely going to have negative infinity. But then we look at the top and we have to look for the y value of the top point in my graph. We have no arrows pointing up. This is the highest point. So we go over, our y value is 4, and we can be equal to it. So we have a bracket. So from -8 to 4 is our range. All right, that is your lesson for today. Now you go and try finding the domain and range on your own.